morning, ladies and gentlemen. We start our working day with a briefing on a very important topic, human rights in Ukraine. And our guests are human rights activists representing to the most reputable human rights organizations in Ukraine. These are Mykola, Kozyrev, Mr. Arkadiy Buschenko, and Yevhen Zakharov, who represent Ukrainian Helsinki Human Rights Union and Kharkiv Human Rights Group. Good morning. Today we are representing two human rights organizations, and our work in the human rights area and compliance with human rights and fundamental freedoms which are reflected in our constitution and in the international treaties and instruments signed and ratified by Ukraine. Our survey and observation of the compliance with the human rights revealed sharp transformation in this area, because the last year we have been living in a situation of a revolution, the revolution of dignity, Maidan, how it was called, although from the historical point of view, this should be bourgeois democratic revolution. The first stage of it happened in 1917, and there's a huge and long gap between the two stages of this revolution partially explains our history. The scales of changes started by Maidan points out to the direction, to the path which this country has to follow to become the country which is developing for the West. I would like to draw your attention to the point that the most fundamental element of the reforms which we are facing is the dominating place of the rule of law. Unfortunately, the situation with the rule of law is not perfect and is not even as good as we would like to see it, because the reactional trends are still rather strong. Today, we are transferring from the historical trend when and historical situation when the right was a privilege of that group of people who believed they were higher than any law and tried to play leading role in the social, economic, and cultural life. And now we are transferring from that situation to the new one, when the human rights are seen as the limiting tool and as a tool of protection for the dignity and rights of people. This is the main trend of today's reforms which Ukraine are undergoing. Good morning. Ukrainian Helsinki Human Rights Union has been issuing its regular issue of the human rights report today, where presenting this report in a rather new format. We are presenting the preliminary results, and while the full-scale report will be published in January 2015. But we felt it was very important to present our preliminary results in a situation when we have new president, new government, and new parliament, and we wanted to make them to hear the voice of human rights organizations. Currently, Ukraine is in a situation when we have a warfare in the east of Ukraine. We have occupied Crimea, and we have passed through the revolution of dignity. All these events and all this revolution are the threats to the human rights, and there is a threat that the human rights will become a victim of other rights, which are also of big importance. We believe that patriotism should not be a protection from criticism for the authorities. And during our today's conference, we will present our vision of the situation with the human rights in Ukraine as of today, and describe the situation in Crimea, which is occupied by Russian Federation. We'll describe the situation with human rights in the east of Ukraine, where the events and the war changed the landscape of human rights radically. And also we will present the situation with human rights in the peaceful territory of Ukraine. The latest year changed the situation so drastically that we found it was rather difficult to undertake that analysis. The events which were coming unexpectedly changed each time changed the situation rather radically. Due to this, due to the fact that the series of events which we witnessed from late 2013 till now will be analyzed by historians later. We are not historians, we are human rights activists. We feel that we should, at this very moment, step in and raise our voice to prevent that the victory over aggression of Russian Federation will be gained on the account of sacrifice of human rights. This will be the pure victory if this would happen. I do not wish to be a patriot of the country which may get rid of the values which I mentioned, which gets rid from the human rights. And I would like to attract your attention to our conference and to encourage those who are interested to participate in it. Thank you for your attention. Good morning. I would like to state that the human rights status in the occupied Crimea, in Donbass, and in the rest of the territory of Ukraine is quite different. Although in the occupied Crimea, the situation may look quite well, but the Crimean Tatars are terribly oppressed. Part of people who still preserve Ukrainian passports very soon, from January 1st, won't be able to leave Crimea in general. they are pressed they are forced to take Russian passports. Then Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Kiev Patriarchy is very much oppressed. Parishioners are forced to change their religious belonging and go to another churches. Actually, we face the situation which existed in the Soviet Union in terms of religious communities. In Donbass, the situation is extremely terrible, where people are tortured, where people are simply killed when they wear or just have somewhere Ukrainian signs and Ukrainian insignia. I'm very much concerned about the general level of barbarism in society, when people forget about mercy, when people are extremely cruel, when they are harsh, when they are aggressive, and they are always ready to make harm to other people, to beat, to torture, to kill. And we have been observing this trend during the last time. Unfortunately, some Ukrainian military servicemen are witnessing what the terrorists had been doing, started to respond the same way and behave the same way. We need to put an end to this, and we have to curb this attitude. The next important aspect is the problem of IDPs. I think this is the first time after the Second World War when we witness this problem. We have registered already 50,000 IDPs, and I assume that approximately the same number remains unregistered. And the government contributes much efforts trying to resolve the problem. And nevertheless, nobody can explain me why pensioners from Счастье town near Donetsk have not been receiving their pensions, and all that 4 months were necessary to re-register them from one administrative district into another administrative district to allow them to receive pensions in other districts where their delivery is more safe. I do not understand why people are still queuing in long lines trying to get their number in a long queue for submission of necessary documents applying to the pension, to getting pension in a new location. I understand this is the result of the fact that for a long period of time, there were no reforms, viable reforms in Ukraine. We have not go too much far from the Yanukovych regime, and unfortunately today we witness many negative facts which flourished under Yanukovych regime, like corruption, like bribes, kickbacks, and payments for governmental posts. And nevertheless, we drastically need anti-corruption reform. We have very corrupt judiciary. We have non-reformed prosecutors system. We have non-reformed educational and healthcare systems. They should be changed very quickly. Thank you for your attention. I hope that Ukrainian society, which internally remains very democratic, will nevertheless find forces to overcome all the troubles and to undertake transformations which are necessary for the society. I'm Yevhen Zakharov, director of Kharkiv Human Rights Group. We have heard about your negative assessment of the situation with human rights today. At the same time, we heard from Amnesty International, from Human Rights Watch, very negative assessments of the situation in Ukraine. And these negative assessments are published in newspapers. They made very negative conclusions about behavior of the Ukrainian servicemen, about the use of cassette charges. How would you comment? I can comment. As for the Human Rights Watch, their conclusion about cassette charges and cassette bombs are not grounded. And my research and analysis showed that Ukrainian forces simply had not such charges in their disposal. Most probably that charges and cassette bombs were used by the opposing party, by the enemies. And actually that statement was based on the report of one very young person whose information was not well grounded and double-checked. Unfortunately, this quite often happens with the Human Rights Watch. As for the Amnesty, as for the Human Rights Watch, about violation of human rights by Ukrainian servicemen, I agree that some violations took place, and nevertheless, the general tone, the general tune of that statements could not be called as right because there is a big contrast between the situation in terrorist republics and in Ukraine. We always try to cope with this situation. All the enforcement agencies respond adequately to each case of such violence. Those who are guilty in the cases of violence, they are immediately punished and dismissed from the military service. Then the numbers of violations is not big. They are not massive. We may count up to a dozen of them. This is a warfare zone, and every day there are people who are kidnapped, there are people who are tortured, there are people who are killed. And while in the territory of terrorist republics, there are hundreds of such people. In Ukrainian territory, there are single cases, and then when hostages are taken, they are very poorly fed, they are very poorly treated, and when there is, unlike in Ukrainian imprisonment, and when the exchange in hostages took place, and the exchange in prisoners took place, it was obviously and very sharply seen that those who remained in Ukrainian military imprisonment, they were well fed and they looked rather healthy, unlike those people who were taken as hostages in the Donbass terrorist republics. And this is what is not mentioned by the Amnesty International. The next, my question, if you would like to provide some recommendations as to the urgent steps in the area of human rights, what would be your recommendations? You mentioned some positive things, but nevertheless, probably you believe that something should be done. I believe that today we should stick with the principle of the rule of law and supremacy of law, because I think that our authorities suffer from the feeling that for the sake of having power, any excuse is good, and we should wake up and work, complying with the rules, with human rights rules. I do not believe that wrong means may allow us to build up or to reach the right target. I think that the means should be fair and right, and then we will reach a good target. That is, again, we come to that word reform, which we have been hearing so quite often. Probably our statement here is full of criticism. But after the revolution of dignity, we realized that the parliament, the executive president, active president at that time, the then commander-in-chief, they bear a huge responsibility. And nevertheless, we managed to build up the army forces. We managed to have presidential elections. And one more thing, the volunteer movement is a big excitement for me, and our estimations show that there is around 1 million of people who participate in the volunteer movement. This is a huge force, but nevertheless, we should got rid on the most negative things. Answering to your question about the recommendations to the authorities, which may assist them in overcoming negative phenomena, I would like to add to what my colleague mentioned, that when our authorities provide a good rationale to the negative facts, such as non-payment of pensions in the ATO zone, where Ukrainian forces are deployed, and when there is such an explanation that Ukrainian government cannot physically deliver money to that territory, territory because there is a threat that those money will be simply stolen. So this looks like a good reason. On the other hand, Ukraine is a member of many international organizations, United Nations, etc. And in this very case, we should request the United Nations to use its mandate and to provide, if not money, but at least the humanitarian aid to those people which are starving to death. We should not allow people to starve to death, should not allow Ukrainian citizens to starve to death. And I believe that Ukrainian government could act more proactively at the international level. You believe that this is the government which should resolve this issue? Yeah, I think yes. Although volunteers, in many cases, are more efficient than the state when delivering aid, but they do not have access everywhere. You mentioned the situation in the east of Ukraine. Yatsenyuk has declared neoliberal reforms, from which most probably Ukrainian population will suffer. And we understand that the third Maidan may play for the sake of Russia, may act for the sake of Russia. What measures could be taken in this situation? What lawful measures are available? You know, legal aids means actually applying to judiciary. On the other hand, speaking about lustration actually should be stopped. We have been undertaking lustration campaigns from 2017, and this country saw many times when people were imprisoned, sentenced to death, and or jailed just because of the idea of lustration in the society. We should stop looking for the enemies inside the country. I am convinced that in case we manage to create really independent courts, people will find truth and justice in courts, and they won't need Maidan to get their salaries paid. They will be able to prevent illegal construction sites. They will be able to act. I think inefficiency of our judiciary system was one of the reasons which gave birth to the bloodshed which we had in Ukraine recently. As for the third Maidan, I'm very much scared of the third Maidan, and all of you know that after bourgeois revolution, there is the next revolution is the socialist revolution, and I'm very much afraid of the next socialist revolution, which will again bring us to this circle of which we had before. I do not see any other tools, any other solutions than to sue in court those agents which violate your rights. It is possible even in our country, although this requires too much effort and too much time. While delays in justice are make justice nonsense. Whether we can have independent justice without lustration in courts. If a judge is corrupt, if he takes bribes, for this very case, we have a criminal code in place. If this judge takes bribes, if he or she is corrupt, then he should be persecuted on the grounds of criminal court. But you should not lustrate people based on the conviction that those people made decisions which are not favored by today's authorities. Actually, this brings us to the long game which you can play hundreds of years. We should put an end to this game. Of course, we have corrupt ministries, we have corrupt policemen, we have corrupt judges, but lustration is not the method, the right way. Justice is a very tender mechanism. You can ruin it very easily if you do not have clear evidences that the judge is a bribe taker. Then you should leave him alone and not try to remove this judge. Speaking about cleaning of justice and cleaning of the authorities in general, we need to have fundamental changes in the country. I said that bourgeois revolution means that the dominating force in the country is bourgeoisie, a small and tiny bourgeoisie. These are business people who exist due to the fact that the Institute of Private Property is fully protected by the state. Today, we do not have private property in full sense. We have a sort of private property which could be deprived from the owner at any time. When the owners will feel that they are full owners, when the employees will feel that they are part of the production process, then the judges will understand that they are needed, they are in demand of those people, and this will make the base for the transformations in the country. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your very interesting presentation. We heard rather serious criticism in the address of two governmental bodies. This was the Ministry of Social Policy, which proved to be incapable to re-register pensioners in the ETO zone, and also the Ministry of the Interior, which do not respond sufficiently to the needs of servicemen. As Ukrainian Crisis Media Center, we will initiate invitation of the representatives from those structures and request them to comment on the data which you mentioned today. Thank you very much.